Hey there, today we're going to look at blocks in Creative Studio 7.0. Now there's a few things using blocks like pattern to boundary, echo, and draw line that helps make your blocks shine. So let's get started and go back to the basics. Alrighty, so I've got a block right here on the quilt, as you can see, and it's a nice square block. It's this red one that we're going to work with. And I always want to, especially when I'm doing more of a custom job, I want to do stitch in the ditch around this block because it's really going to hold the size of the block along with keeping it as square as it possibly can. And it's also going to keep my border straight when I come in to do a border corner later on in the season. So what I'm going to do is I want to use draw line to go around this block to do stitch in the ditch. So I'm actually going to go to my computer screen and I'm going to left click on my icon for draw line. Now also I have the quick change feet on my machine, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put my open toe foot on, and what that allows me to do is I can see directly to the needle. There's no obstruction from that closed toe, which really helps for stitch in the ditch. So I'm going to go ahead and just pop this off real quick by unscrewing. That foot's going to fall off. I'll pop this new one right back on, that quick change system, tighten the nut down, take my little wrench, tighten it just a little bit more, and it's on there. Perfect, just what I need. So what I'm going to do is I have draw line selected and I put my open toe foot on, and I am going to just go ahead and click multiple points in the ditch around this red block, okay? So I'm using my select button on my keypad and I'm just following my laser and I'm clicking multiple points in the ditch. You know, as comfortable as you would like to be with it. You can kind of go between, you know, I'm I'm a ½ inch to an inch right now on these clicks. But if it's a little bit more of a wavy stitch in the ditch, then you're going to definitely want to do those clicks a little bit closer. And one thing that I recommend when you're doing the stitch in the ditch is to bring your blocks as close to you as you possibly can, okay? That way you're not leaning on your belly bar while you're clicking far away, because once you get off of your belly bar and you allow the machine to start stitching, it's not going to be in the ditch anymore because you've changed the coordinates basically of where you were clicking. Even just the slightest lean on that bar can change where this machine ends up stitching. And that can be with anything, not just with stitch in the ditch. If you're clicking out an edge to edge, then leaning on that belly bar can really like depress the fabric in, and it's going to change where your machine is going to be stitching. Okay, so I'm just going to click through this ditch, and normally I would go a little bit slower, but I'm just going to move through this for you. And there we go. Now we're coming up around here. As we go, click, click, click. Remember, I'm not leaning on that belly bar when I'm doing this far away. I'm using my laser to get right in that ditch. When I get right here, I'm going to hit close drawing, and then I'm going to click exit drawing. Okay? And if you'd like, you can see what the speed is that your machine is going to stitch at. It's probably going to be defaulted to stitch at speed 2, but you can always check that by left-clicking on the new pattern that we've made, because we did draw a line, so it is a sewable line. It's technically a pattern. And right here at the bottom left, we have a little eye. If I left-click on that eye, you can see that it's going to be stitching at a speed of 2, which is a good speed. To start out with. If you want to go slower or faster, you can while the machine is stitching, or you can change it right here. I'm going to go ahead and hit save and close, and then I'm actually going to go ahead and hit start quilting. The machine is going to take a single stitch, and I'm going to pull up the bobbin thread, and I think I didn't have enough tail there and it went underneath, so let's take another single stitch. I'll swoop right underneath the foot, and there's my bobbin threads. And I'm going to hold those taut, and I'm going to go ahead and click continue. And so you can see now the machine is going to be stitching, and I can actually what we call surfing. I can kind of surf the fabric here and there to get it right in the ditch as best as I can. And also not leaning on that belly bar when I'm doing this. Okay? And if I want to slow it down because this is going a little too fast for me, I can hit the decrease speed button on my keypad. and it can slow it down really nice and slow, which allows me to really manipulate this fabric to make sure that that stitch line is right in the ditch where I want it. It's coming up to where it ended here. It's going to tie off. Ding. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and pull up my bobbin thread. So it did my tie off stitches, so I'm just going to pull the machine towards me, go backwards and take a single stitch, and then pull up, and I'll just cut all those threads that I see and get anything out of the foot that I might have here. There we go. Perfect. Okay, so what that gave me was a nice block. Okay, it's as straight as I can possibly get it, and that also kept my borders really nice and straight by doing that stitch in the ditch around it. So now I'm going to go ahead and actually place a pattern in the block and start stitching that using pattern to boundary. So I'm going to show you how easy that is. Okay, so we did our bobbin pull up. I'm going to go ahead and click continue. Okay, and you can see here that we had a pattern on the screen because we used draw line, so it was a pattern. Well, instead of having to delete that and then redraw a boundary around this block to place a pattern into that boundary, what I'm going to do is left click on this draw line that I just created, and then I will right click and come down to convert, and I'm going to convert the pattern to a boundary. And right there it has converted what we just used for our stitch in the ditch to a boundary so we can place a pattern in it. Okay, so I'm going to look for the pattern that I want to use for this block. Okay, and I have already picked it out. I think I want to use this lollipop, and here it is. So it's a lollipop circle block, and this one's by Joyce Lundergan. And it's always good to go ahead and get in the groove and get kind of, positioned in your brain to add a pattern to your project before you start using it on the quilt, okay? And you'll see why that makes a little bit more sense later throughout the season. But I always want to add the pattern to my project instead of working out of my pattern database itself. So I can double left click on the pattern to add it to my project, or I can right click on the pattern and left click on add to project. And right here at the bottom left I have my prompts box, and your prompts kind of tells you the last action that you did or what you're working on right now. Okay, so this one is pattern, lollipop circle block, and it's been added to the project. So if I come to my project tab, you'll see that here it is. I'll left click on the pattern to select it, and then I'm going to come up here to pattern to boundary and left click on pattern to boundary so it can place it inside of that block. So with that block selected here, let's go ahead and take a look at how we would do an echo. So I have my orange handles on, which are my center handles, and they move everything from the center. So I'm going to grab one of these squares and kind of just shrink this block down just a little bit. And then I'm using the Creative Studio 7 default tool strip. So over here I've got Echo Object, and I can select Echo Object. And you're going to see that Creative Studio is going to place an echo around this pattern, and we have our setup box over here on the right. So it's doing it at a spacing of 1/4 inch, and it's doing 1 echo. So if I want to do more than 1 echo, I can hit this plus sign, and it's going to add echoes, or if I want to do, let's say 3, I can do that, or if I'd like to do less echoes, I can hit the minus sign, and you'll see that it's going to bring that number down. Now right underneath the number you see set placement, and you've got inside and outside, okay? And this is actually a really cool part of echo. So I have it set on outside for 1, but let's say I want to echo inside of this circle in the center here, okay? So this is when the function of again comes in handy a lot, okay? So we're going to select again, and you'll see that it placed another 1 on the outside again, but I want to click inside now, and then left click where I want the echo to go. So I want it to go inside of this circle, so I'm going to left click inside of this circle. And it's going to place it right inside of the circle, okay? And with that, I can increase or decrease, and then I can kind of click around and see exactly where I want the 1 echo to go. But using that again function is really handy. So you'll hit the again first, and then you'll change it to inside, and then left click inside of where you want it to echo. So I'll go ahead and say OK whenever I'm done. And that center echo, we're not going to stitch that out, but I wanted you to see how you were going to do an inside echo. So I'm just going to left click on this X here and delete it out. Okay. And then I'm going to highlight both of these using my orange handles as well and kind of pull this out as much as I can to fill up the block. And whenever I get it exactly where I want it, this gives me the ability now to go ahead and hit start quilting. And the machine is going to move to where it needs to begin stitching. Okay. I'm going to pull up my bobbin thread, and while holding these threads, both your bobbin and your top taut, I'm going to go ahead and click continue. Cut my threads, and the machine is off to the races. Block, and it's going to tie off right here for me. Ding. And I will pull the machine towards me, grab my top thread, come back, take a single stitch right over where it finished. And right there I've got my bobbin and my top, and I'm going to go ahead and cut everything that I see, just like that, okay? And I'm going to go ahead and press continue on my keypad, and the machine is going to move to where it wants to begin the echo, which is right here. And once again, I left too short of a tail, so I will pull some thread up some more and then go ahead and take another single stitch. Pull up my bobbin thread, it's right there, and I will hold these taut and press continue. It's going to do its tie off and then begin the echo. And I can trim those off. And so what you can see here is it's just putting that 1/4 inch echo around the outside of this pattern, giving it just a little bit of an extra pop, kind of separating the block pattern from its background, which is really, really nice. So it's just going to stitch right around these circles. And remember, when we converted our stitch in the ditch line to our boundary, you can see that that echo got really, really close to it because we had an exact boundary, because that was our stitch in the ditch. So we know exactly where that block ended because we did so many clicks for that stitch in the ditch. Now that our echo has ended, I will pull the machine towards me, grab the thread, take a single stitch, pull up my bobbin, trim away, and right there I placed a block pattern inside of the block on the quilt using pattern to boundary, and then did a nice easy echo around it to separate it from its background. And then also I've got that nice draw line right around this block to stabilize the block with stitch in the ditch and also keep that border nice and straight. Isn't it amazing how easy it is to use pattern to boundary, echo, and draw line to help make your quilting blocks shine with Creative Studio 7.0? Well, that's all I've got for you today. I'll see you next time when we go back to the basics.